Whenever she wants to ask her question, she'll be recognized.
Well, fortunately, I haven't reached that 50-year mark, and I don't plan on getting there anytime soon or anytime faster than I have to. So I don't know about the midlife crisis yet, but I'll take your advice. For the for the record, Mr. Chairman, I sit on the committee that has jurisdiction over the Department of Labor, and that's why I wanted to correct the statistics to which you're quoting. And I will do so if you say something that isn't actual correct. Statistically speaking, I will be happy to make sure we understand for the record.
Please do.
Committee it will. Sir, going to WOTUS for a little bit, and then I want to talk about heavy trucks. A federal court recently struck down, or actually put a preliminary injunction stopping the implementation of WOTUS into two states, Texas and Idaho. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Thankfully, the court didn't grant Chevron deference. You've consistently said that you want a durable rule, quote, at the end of the day, but at least 25 states, which is half the country, are suing to prevent WOTUS rule from going into effect. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Given that everything is happening in the courts, aren't you just gambling on this one, hoping that the courts will apply Chevron deference to the WOTUS?
We didn't see it as that. We looked at this rule, and we've got 45 years of experiences in terms of what has happened in the past.
Right.
We took a look at the fact that the Trump rule was vacated. There was no Obama rule. And so this rule basically tries to take advantage of every experience.
You have half the country, which means half of the local jurisdiction over their backyard, over their environment, is saying, whoa, we don't want this. EPA is overstepping here, half the country. You don't think that's something that you should take in consideration? I mean, Washington, D.C. doesn't rule the rest of the world, nor does it rule the rest of the country. I mean, there is states that have the right to oversee and regulate if they're able to do so. And we have 25 states that are saying, we don't want WOTUS. Do you not take that in consideration at all? Or you just say, hey, Washington knows best, forget you all, we're going to do what we want?
Well, you know, I basically have to say that the Constitution and the statutory authorities and the request by Congress for us to execute on safe and clean drinking water laws is what guided my actions. I do understand that.
But WOTUS, when you start looking at the Clean Water Act, if you want to get in that, it specifically talked about navigable bodies of water.
Sure.
Intermittent streams that eventually flow into navigable bodies of water is not what Congress covered. Congress was very specific underneath the Clean Water Act when it stated navigable bodies of water is to which we would have jurisdiction over. So how are we overreaching in this? And that's where I get into. This is where something I think you need to take into consideration. I respect the job that you did in North Carolina, and we spoke about that. But I think we need to take in consideration the rest of the country. Going to, what's your definition of environmental justice? You mentioned that in your statement. That's why I say that.
Well, I think the definition, not mine, but the definition is that everyone, despite your race, you know, your community, your zip code, your income, everyone deserves equal protection under the law from environmental pollution.
So the 25 states you just ignore? That's half the country.
25 states.
Well, 25 states are saying they don't want WOTUS, and you're talking about clean water, clean air, environmental justice. WOTUS does do with that. 25 states are saying they don't want it, and you're going around.
I think part of our, and we'll continue this conversation.
Right.
The tension is that you know you have what the Clean Water Act requires for us to do. You've got Justice Kennedy's opinion, you've got Justice Scalia's opinion, and then you have where we are today. I think we did our best job to look at what Congress has requested, to take a look at those two justices, to look at what the Obama administration and Trump administrations failed to do, and to respond in terms of what we're required to do, which is provide
communities that live in this environment, communities that live right where they stay, like my family's been in Oklahoma, right where we're at since 1830s. I think we know our backyard better than the EPA. Yeah. And no one takes more pride of it than we do. No one plays in the creek and swims in the creek that my kids play, and nobody from the EPA that I know of. They never have. I promise you no one has better interest in it than I do. And I would just like the EPA to take that into consideration. Real quick, going to heavy trucks. I know we're talking about zero emissions, but as the EPA took in consideration the safety and health and the hazard that it would cause on the roads, because when you take combustible out and you put in electric vehicles, you're going to add a minimum of 5,000 pounds to it, plus you're going to add length to it. So you're going to have a 2-to-1 option that you're going to add for every truck that's on the road. And congestion has already taken place in California, which is causing a humongous backlog on our supply chain. And if you take in considering their rule, and they're going to have de facto by saying that they go to zero emissions, isn't that going to affect interstate commerce, how we're going to get equipment to and from the rest of the part of the United States, and not to mention that we're going to add a tremendous amount of traffic on the road? EPA needs to be considering this because we don't have the infrastructure to add these additional trucks on the road. And so before we just continue down this road, we need to once again, sir, take all this in consideration. And I'm sorry I'm out of time. Sir, if you want to give him time to respond, he can, but I'm out of time, so I'll yield.
Yeah, just very briefly.
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. The statements suggest that we have not taken those things into account. And when you see the proposed rule that's coming out in the weeks to come, I think you will see much of that taken into account, but we can have that conversation.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so every time I put out a video, you can know about it. It'll come up in your feed. Hit that like button if you liked it. And be positive. Peace.